Welcome to Knowledge, the official podcast of the College of Arts and Sciences at Florida State University. I'm your host, Amy Walden, and today we welcome Stewart Moore to the podcast. Stewart is an alumnus of the FSU English department, majoring in creative writing with a minor in communications, and is currently a news anchor at WESH 2 News in Orlando. Stewart, thank you for joining us on the podcast today.
Amy, it's awesome to be here and be a part of this podcast. I've been watching from afar on YouTube and honored to finally get to sit next to you virtually in this case.
Thank you so much. It's an honor for us as well. So, Stewart, before we dive into all that you've been up to since graduating from FSU, take us back. Can you tell us how you first became interested in broadcast journalism?
Well, how I first became interested in broadcast journalism is very similar to a lot of people in the Southeast, you could say, hurricanes. Back in 1989, I'm dating myself some, I was 5 years old and a hurricane hit my home state of South Carolina, and we didn't have power for 2 weeks. And so during that 2 week span, we did have a battery operated television back when those things actually existed. And so every day, the only thing that we could see on TV was the news. And at that point, I really was leaning towards meteorology just because I was impressed by what the storm had done to my community and our entire region. But also then it started my beginnings of wanting to watch the news and be more tied to journalism. As I got older and I got towards high school age, 9/11 happened, wars happened, and we started seeing those things broadcast on television. And I kind of shifted from wanting to do meteorology to wanting to do more news. And that's what's driven me to get into this career. And it's something that I've wanted to do since I was 5 years old. Here I am 35 years later, and I'm living out my dream.
It's an amazing story, and I think something not too many people get to say is that they're living their dream. What was it about FSU specifically that attracted you, and what was your college journey like?
So there's the hook, right? You know, FSU has one of the best meteorology programs in the Southeast. Of course, it's the best one in the state of Florida. And, you know, at that point, at least early on, you know, I'm watching college football growing up as a kid and watching college baseball, and FSU is dominating in both of those realms, and they're always on TV. So I'm seeing that. Then I got the hook that FSU was great in meteorology, which originally I wanted to do. And I was like, I'm going there. So since, you know, fifth grade time frame, I was like, I'm going to FSU. Well, when I shifted my intention to do news, I just stayed with FSU anyway. I saw that we had a top tier communications department, a top tier English department. And so I latched myself onto that dream. I was the first one in my family who said that they were going to Florida State. I'm leaving my home state of South Carolina to do that. Everyone thought I was a little crazy. I have a cousin that's 3 years older than me, and she wound up going to Florida State before I did. So it almost looked like I followed her, but she was following up on the dream that I had set forth years earlier. And so we have two members of our family who are proud alum of Florida State. And, you know, I'm just glad to be one of those two.
It sounds like maybe we have to get her on the next episode of the podcast.
She is a very successful doctor in Jacksonville. She would love to do it. And her husband's also a doctor in Jacksonville. So there you go. You got a twofer for FSU alum up there.
Awesome. I love it. So while you were still in school, you actually got the opportunity to begin reporting and even anchoring at the news station in Tallahassee, WTXL. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how you got your foot in the door even as a student?
So I went an intern at CNN in Atlanta. And when I came back, they had a job opening at WTXL as an assistant editor. And from dating back from my high school days, I knew how to use some editing equipment, specifically at that time, Adobe Final Cut Pro. And then I went to WTXL, which, you know, to my surprise, at least as a 21-year-old guy, was that they were still on tape to tape. So it expanded my viewpoint on how to edit and how to put things together. I was able to get that position. I remember walking into the boss's office. The company had just been sold. This news station had just been sold. So they were under new leadership, and they were in the attic at WFSU near the engineering school. And I walk in, and I just interned at CNN, which is, you know, this huge building in Atlanta, this, you know, 2 blocks worth of building. And I walk into an attic that's about the size of a giant king size room. And I was thinking to myself, this is a lot different than network TV. But I showed my boss at the time a copy of a video that I'd made when I was at CNN on an anchor desk there. And I said, this is my ultimate goal. But for now, I would love to take this editing job. And she looked at me and she kind of laughed and she puts that to the side. She says, yeah, you can have the editing job, just to let me know that I wasn't going to be reporting anytime soon, which I did want to do in there before I left. But part of that journey was just getting my foot in the door. And knowing that, you know, small markets are markets where young people can thrive and grow and learn and make mistakes and not have a career ender at that point. So I was fortunate enough to start as an assistant editor as I was entering my senior year. Then I was also fortunate enough that, at the same time I was working at the Chick-fil-A on Appalachian Parkway. I was working at WTXL. I was a full-time student. I still played intramural kickball and softball on campus and football. And so, back when time felt like I had too much of it. But I was given the opportunity to come in on weekends sometimes at WTXL and do some reporting. So I reported in Southern Georgia at the Thomasville festivals and Bainbridge. I would go to the farmers market in Tallahassee and just do stories that necessarily weren't the most important or biggest stories of the day, but they also deserve coverage. And because I would volunteer to go in on weekends, I don't think my boss fought me back too much knowing that it was free labor. So I would start doing stand-ups in front of these locations and, making packages that necessarily didn't air, but, the video would air, and then I would show my boss my package. And then, I would go shoot another bow shot somewhere else, and I'd show her the package that I did and put that together. And eventually she put it on TV. And it became a regular thing where then I started working weekends as a part-time reporter, part-time assistant editor, before they finally told me, hey, you need to get rid of Chick-fil-A. We know you're still in school. So then I was working at WTXL full-time, going to school full-time in my last semester on campus. And it just gave me a great launching pad. As soon as I graduated from school, I already had 1 year in this business under my belt. And places like Tallahassee are unique in the sense that you can get those jobs while you're still in college, get that experience, and then take it with you as soon as you graduate.
And I think that's great advice for students who might be listening to this, who are thinking about following a similar path to yours. And fast forward to today, can you tell us a little bit more about your current role here at WESH 2 News, where you're reporting right now from the set?
Yeah, so I'm on the set, and I'm here every night, 6, 7, and 11 p.m. This job, it didn't come easy. I had to work to get to this spot, too, because after I left Tallahassee, I went to Columbia, South Carolina, worked there 3.5 years, started off as the weekend morning person there, became the weekday morning person there, was able to interview John McCain, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama during the 2008 presidential campaign, was able to cover a lot of big stories, made lifelong friends. Craig Melvin, who's on the Today Show, he and I worked there at the same time. We're still great buddies. But when I came here to Orlando in 2011, my entire mission at that time was to keep moving. I wanted to get to top 10, top 5, number 1 market, network, TV. But something special about WESH 2 and something special about being here in Florida and in Orlando. I started off as the weekend morning anchor here. Then I went to weekend evenings. At the same time, I had just gotten back from covering the Sochi Olympics in 2014, where my station sent me to cover the games. I did weekend evenings, and I went to weekday mornings where I was on our CW, our sister station, filling in on the WESH 2 set as well. And then I was doing the noon show. Then I went to weekday evenings, and now on weekday evenings in the 6, 7, and 11 p.m. slot. So I've literally done every different anchor role. I've reported in every type of situation here at WESH 2. I feel like I've grown so much as a journalist, as a person, and I've started my family here. And now, where Orlando in the beginning in 2011 was just a footnote and a stop in my life, it's now become home, and it's a place that I hope to spend the rest of my career.
It's wonderful. And diving in a little bit more to some of those news stories that you've covered a lot of the biggest news stories in recent history, from hurricanes, presidential elections, the Pulse nightclub shooting, the George Zimmerman trial, just to name a few. And you've won multiple Emmy Awards and Associated Press Awards for your work. Looking back on your career so far, what have been some of your most memorable moments so far?
Well, I'll start off with the grim, and then I'll get us to some more light news. But, obviously you mentioned Pulse nightclub. I got a tip at, 1:45-ish in the morning, 1:50-ish in the morning, that something was going on at Pulse nightclub. I'd never heard of Pulse nightclub, didn't really know where it was because it's a little bit south of downtown Orlando, not where other nightclubs and places are. But I rushed down there as soon as I could. And when I got there, I was literally across the street from the club while people were being pulled out before the shooter had been subdued. In the midst of all of that, an explosion happened behind me while we're on live TV when they burst into the wall and took down the shooter. So just being that first writer of history to have that moment where, I tweeted that this was happening and the New York Times retweeted it, and then it went worldwide. And it became the point person of what was happening in that breaking news. I was a part of a team that won 2 Emmy Awards for as part of that coverage. And I'd covered big news before, like you mentioned, the George Zimmerman trial, the Trayvon Martin. I covered the marches that were associated with that. I went and covered the trial every single day. But that was like the turning point of breaking news coverage and what I needed to do to jump out there and tell the story in a calm and a clear way so the viewers knew exactly what was happening, not to scare anyone, but just to let them know what was going on down there. So, that was a big story. I covered several hurricanes, as you mentioned, up and down the coast of Florida, even outside of Florida and North Carolina for Florence, I believe it was. Hurricane Michael up in the Panhandle. I was there as the Cat 5 was making its way on the Panama City beach. I was in Panama City. My meteorologist here at the time, Chief Meteorologist Tony Manalfi, he told me, don't go to Mexico Beach, which is where we wanted to go. He's like, don't go to Mexico Beach. Go to Panama City, which is, 5 miles to the west of Mexico Beach. And the center of that storm went to Mexico Beach and it knocked down every single building except for one. So had we been there, we may have died. But that just tells you the accuracy of some of our forecasting. But it gave me the opportunity to be able to see firsthand what people go through in a Category 5 storm on the coastline. And it's much different than what Category 4 and 5s looks once they start moving inland with the infrastructure, because literally everything was flattened. And being able to tell those people's stories, to show people at home who maybe didn't experience that type of thing, what other people need and the type of help that they can also offer. It just helps people to know that they can be connected throughout the entire community. But on a brighter note, I also got to cover the last national championship for Florida State. I was on the sidelines as Jameis threw that touchdown pass to Travis Benjamin. And I just remember, we're in a press box where there's people covering from Auburn and there's people covering from Florida State. And it's a very unwritten rule that you don't celebrate, you don't cheer in a press box. And I remember when Auburn went up by 2 touchdowns, the Auburn media was cheering and they were loud in that press box. And we gave it right back to them. And as soon as that game-winning touchdown was caught and all the FSU media that was around was there, we kind of let down our media hat, or traditional media hat, and became fans at that moment. And that was a special thing for me, being a FSU alum, to be able to witness that up close. You mentioned the Olympics, that's unforgettable, worldwide games, to be a part of that. So, it's been a great career. I've got to meet so many interesting people. Jennifer Lopez, Mario Lopez was here a couple of weeks ago. Lin-Manuel Miranda, I've met him. And the list goes on. And we've had great moments. Kevin Hart was here. Ice Cube was here. And this job, this position, and this market has given me the affordability to interact with so many different cool people. And not to mention, we have the theme parks that are here. So a lot of people come into town for the theme parks and they want to get some news out about what they may be doing. So being able to be on the forefront of that has also been special.
Okay, you're really making me want to take a road trip to Orlando right now. It's been too long. What advantages do you feel earning a degree in creative writing and communications from FSU gave you in preparing for your career?
We have a lot of interns that come from all over, from, FSU, obviously, but from UF, from Miami, from schools out of this state. And a lot of them are in, different media classes, news journalism classes that are directing them straight into working in this industry. But writing at FSU, for me, it helped give me a leg up faster than anything else. Obviously, you'll learn what VOSOP means. You'll learn how to shoot video in a certain way. You'll learn how to edit things in a certain way for news and all that sort of things. But when it comes to being able to write something, write it fast, write it clear so everyone can understand it, and write it either long form or short, it's unquestionable that FSU was able to give me the tools that I needed to succeed from day one. I had a very critical boss when I worked in Columbia, South Carolina, who on my first day, I wrote what I thought was the best package ever. And she literally looked at it, tore it apart and said, go back and try again. But I knew what she meant, because in that scenario, I was writing a novel and I'd written long form and short form at FSU. So I was like, I need to make this tighter. I need to make this make more sense and get to the point. And so I was quickly able to modify how writing style goes for news versus not. And other students, and not to take anything away from our interns who are all fantastic, but it takes some time to get yourself up to speed, to be able to write a certain way, to give stories as fast as you can. And it's different from writing from web and newspaper to writing for TV. And the faster you're able to catch up to that, the better. And using FSU from a writing standpoint, from a communication standpoint, it truly gave me a leg up when I started off my career.
It's amazing. And so many of our students are following a similar career path to yours. You've stayed very involved with FSU, serving currently on the National Board of Directors for the FSU Alumni Association. And I've also served as a board member on the Seminole Club of Greater Orlando. Why has staying connected to FSU been so important to you along the way?
For me, it's just a pivotal moment of my life. FSU, it taught me so many things. A kid who never studied in his life goes to a campus 7 hours away with all the freedoms of the world. And it taught me how to become a man really quickly, how to be an adult really quickly. And so I, feel like I owe a debt to FSU and to students who are like me, to be able to show them the path that I went on, show them the mistakes that I made, but then also help push them to get to that finish line. School now versus when I was there, I was paying out-of-state tuition. And I look back now at the prices of what it was. It was like $1,500 for a class. But for the whole semester for my buddies who were in-state was $1,500. Now, I quickly switched to in-state after a year and a half. But now I look back, and so when I'm funding or helping fund some scholarships or helping fund future Seminoles to be able to attend the university, I know that my money's being well spent because the prices today are not the same as they were back when I was a student. And I know that the struggle for students is twice as hard. So, anytime I can give back for FSU, promote the brand, or just get more people involved with it that have already graduated from FSU, I'm going to push that button. In this building right now, I think we have about 5 FSU alum who are here, and I've got 3 of them currently involved in one way or another outside of just going to football games, which is an easy thing for people to do, and I want people to do. I do it. But, you have to be involved on the local level. We had Seminole send-offs in Orange County, Seminole County, and Lake and Sumter counties. So, the Seminole clubs here are thriving, and they just need people that are going to help support them because, people are going to switch in and out. And right now, the Orlando club is doing amazing. So, whenever I can give back, whether it's the national board or the local level, it's important for me to do so.
Last question for you, Stewart. What advice would you give to current FSU students who may be interested in pursuing a career path that's similar to yours?
So the first thing I'd tell every student, and this is outside of just my career path, this is for everybody, pray first, aim high, stay focused. Because, in the morning, somebody's going to tell you you can't do whatever your dream is. So pray about it first. Aim high, aim higher than what people think you are able to accomplish. Don't ever sell yourself short, and always stay focused on what that dream is. If you step out of your bed every single day and say, one day I'm going to be on the news desk in Orlando, then one day you'll be on the news desk in Orlando. And, you have to work hard. You have to make those sacrifices. I came in on weekends for free in Tallahassee and went and reported on the Mule Festival in Bainbridge, Georgia. You're going to have to make some sacrifices along the way. You're going to have to miss some parties along the way, but it'll pay off eventually. So I would tell people that want to do news specifically, study history, read more. Read headlines every single day, not just opinion pieces, but read what actually happened and engross yourself in knowing what's going on. Because the more you know without a script, without a prompter in front of you, the better off your storytelling will be.
Fantastic advice and very well said. Stewart, thank you so much for joining us today on the Nole Edge podcast. And if you would like to learn more about Stewart Moore and the FSU Alumni Association, visit alumni.fsu.edu. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.